Hello and welcome back. Before I get started on chapter 7, there is some things that I need to correct. Okay, the reason why I was confused whether it was the mother or the daughter in chapter 1 to 3, is because at the beginning, the very first sentence of chapter 1, I said my daughter when it's actually my mother. So, question. Should I reread chapters 1 and 3 or leave it as is with this explanation? Y'all let me know. And I realize whenever the chapter says the name, that's who's speaking. Okay, we shall now move forward to chapter 7. See you there. Chapter 7, Catherine. Sunrise Senior Living is divided into 3 levels: daily assistant, extended care, and the memory wing. When I began working here right after I graduated high school, I was assigned to the daily assistant tier. The people in daily assistant are mostly independent, though some use walkers or require help getting dressed. They read large print books, FaceTime their grandchildren, and invite each other over for cocktail hour. A few of them still drive. For those who didn't, I often used the Sunrise van to take them to the nearby strip mall so they could shop or enjoy lunch. As I gained experience and drew closer to earning my nursing degree, I moved to the next tier, extended care. These residents need help transferring in and out of bed and with medication oversight. Most have lost spouses and friends. Their worlds are inexorably shrinking. When I entered their rooms, their face lit up, even if I was just coming to bring them a glass of Ensure or close their curtains. I began working in the memory wing a year ago. It's a different universe. After I dropped my mother at Sam's and arrived at Sunrise, I reached for the bag in the back seat that contains 2 pairs of socks, a set of stackable measuring cups with one missing, a baby doll dressed in a onesie, and the treasure from my latest Goodwill run, Piano Compositions by Claude Debussy, on an unscratched CD. I walk through the lobby and greet the front desk attendant as I flash my ID and use the computer to sign in, then head to the main floor employees' locker room to slip on the extra scrubs I keep there. The locker room is empty, but in the attached kitchen, there's a loaf of banana bread on the countertop next to a card with the words, "Thank you," written in blue shimmery script. I've only had coffee today. My stomach was too twisted before my mother's appointment to accept solid food. So even though I'm not hungry, I walk over and peel back the saran wrap and cut a slice. If I'm going to work today, I'll need the energy. The card is from the daughter of a resident, expressing her appreciation for our help in caring for her father. I finished the banana bread without really tasting it and rewrapped the loaf. As I'm trying to think of what to do next, my supervisor, Tin, come through the door, holding an ice pack to her forehead. "Oh my gosh, are you okay?" "Just a little bump." She removes the ice. "How does it look?" I scan her smooth skin. "No swelling I can see. What happened?" Tin walks to the cupboard and finds a bottle of Advil, then swallows 2. Mr. Baker rushed the door and I got a knock in the head trying to block him. "I'm fine. I just need to sit down for a few. I'm going to take my lunch break now." I pour Tin a glass of water as she settles into one of the chairs encircling the round table in the middle of the room. Part of the reason I came in early today was to see Tin, but I don't want to rush her. Before I can say anything, though, she frowns. "Aren't you supposed to be in later?" "Yeah, I was actually hoping to catch you." Tin must pick up something in my voice. Her face softens and she gestures for me to sit down. "I know I gave notice, but I was hoping I could withdraw it. I need to keep working here for a while longer." Tin knows all about my plans to move to Baltimore. When I began applying for jobs 5 months ago, I asked her for a reference. The offer came in quickly from Hopkins, and Tin was the second person I told after my mother. Tin knows how excited I was to move to a fresh city and construct a whole new life, one that's all my own. Mercifully, Tin doesn't bring any of that up. She tucks a stray lock of shiny black hair behind one ear. How long would you want to stay? A couple of years. Now that I'm done with school, I was hoping to pick up a few extra shifts. My mother may not be ready to plan, but one of us need to. I have to work as much as I can now because as her memory recedes and her needs grow, I'll have to scale my hours back. And without my mother waitress income, money will be tighter than ever. I have no idea how long she'll be able to continue at Sam's. He'll cut her some slack because she's a dependable hard worker, but he's not going to be happy when she forgets to put in breakfast orders and undercharges customers for things she forgot to add to the bill. We need to stockpile cash while we can. Catherine, are you okay? This is all of a sudden. Aren't you supposed to move in like 10 days? I refocus on her. Yeah, it's my mom. She's sick. Oh no, I'm so sorry. Tin seems to be waiting for me to continue, but I can't. She finally breaks the silence. Stay on as long as you want. I can put you on a full-time schedule next month. I nod vigorously, hoping the gesture conveys my gratitude. Then I stand up and busy myself wiping a few crumbs off the counter. Tin is one of the people I admire most in the world. She's only 5 years older than me, but she has 2 master's degrees and oversees a staff of a dozen nurses, assistants, and volunteers. She has a lot of experience comforting distraught family members and works with some of the most challenging cases on the memory wing. If I were going to talk to anyone about what my mother is facing, it would be Tin. But I can't, not yet. Not just because the realization of what my mother will become is so overwhelming that I can only comprehend it in short bursts, as if the knowledge is a series of waves breaking over my head and temporarily snuffing out my ability to see, to hear, to breathe. It's also this. Tin will immediately recognize, as I have, that the incurable disease that has slithered through at least one generation of my family, from my grandmother to my mother, may be waiting to strike again. It may come for me next. Oh. Tin said I could start work early today, another gesture of kindness. I gather my bag of goodwill odds and ends and head for the elevator. The destination for most visitors and employees is floors 1 through 4. Mine is floor 5. The elevator will take anyone there, but once you step off, you can only walk a few feet before encountering a locked door with a keypad code. Above it, a camera's unblinking red eye signifies it's watching your every move. From the outside, the entrance is clearly visible, with the door's silver knob contrasting with its beige color. On the inside, it's a different story. I input my code and wait for the lock to click. When it does, I push open the door a few inches, check to make sure no one is on the other side, then walk through and wait for it to shut behind me. I'm in the memory wing. The wall on the side of the door is painted blue, and the door is the exact same hue, knob and hinges and all. No signs indicate this is the way out. There's a keypad, but it's also painted blue to blend in. The number on the pads are scrabbled, with a few positioned upside down. Unless you know exactly where the exit is and have the ability to decipher a confusing code, it's virtually impossible to leave this floor, which is the whole point. As I move down the short hallway, I hear a woman calling, "Can someone please get me a bellboy?" I round the corner and encounter Mrs. Dennison, who wears a gold and black jacket over stretchy slacks. Her silver hair is in an elegant bob. Miss Dennison's daughter takes her to the salon every 2 weeks, and her expression brightens when she sees me. Miss, can you help me? I'm looking for a bellboy to carry down our luggage. Oh, checkout isn't for another hour, I tell her. I'll take you to our executive waiting room where you can enjoy a complimentary beverage and some snacks. That sounds lovely, dear. I just need to go tell my husband. Miss Dennison allows me to hold her elbow and guide her toward the community room. Frank and I had a lovely stay here, absolutely lovely. I'm glad to hear it. Miss Dennison twists her head around. Where did Frank go? When she first arrived on the memory wing and asked for her husband, I watched Mrs. Denson's daughter explain Frank had died 6 months earlier. From the pained but weary expression on her daughter's face, it was clearly a conversation they had many times before. But Miss Dennison was essentially hearing it for the first time. Oh, no, her face crumpled. What happened to my Frank? She was completely distraught, moaning and shaking. Then her short-term memory wiped itself clean and it began again. Where is Frank? One of the finest moments of patient care I've witnessed came when Tin stepped in and told Mrs. Dennison's daughter it would be a kindness to let her mother believe Frank was alive. But my mother abhors lying, Mrs. Dennison's daughter protests. My whole life, she has always demanded I tell her the truth. Tin held her ground, and now, as far as Mrs. Denison is concerned, her beloved Frank is always just a room away. Mrs. Dennison passes the time waiting to be with her husband by taking art classes and enjoying supervised walks in the garden and listening to the music. At night, when she is put to bed, she believes Frank is in the bathroom. It feels like a bit of a grace that her damaged brain permits this hologram of Frank to hover nearby. Alzheimer's has stolen so much from Mrs. Denison, and it isn't finished plaguing yet. It's a ferocious, fiendish disease, so cunning that despite more than $3 billion a year dedicated to research, no one can find a cure or even a way to slow its progression. My nursing classes taught me how to trace this path of wreckage. It generally strikes the hippocampus first, the region of the mind that's the grand central station of memory. Its tentacles continue stretch, wreaking havoc with an intricate... Okay, we came across our first word. Infinitesimal. I don't know how to pronounce it, so I'll have it on the screen, and there will be a definition video. Delicate areas governing emotions and movement and the ability to do simple tasks like use a fork. In autopsies, even Alzheimer's brain tissue looks confusing, like some monstrous hand reached in and swirled everything around. I settled Miss Denison into a soft chair by the window in the community room with a cup of warm tea by her side. All water taps on this floor are engineered to never go above 110 degrees. Then walk over to Mr. Gray, who has a plastic basket on his lap. I take the socks from my bag, separate them, and add them to the dozen or so pairs in his basket. So much laundry to do, he mutters. When Mr. Gray grows agitated, which happens a few times a day, we bring out the sock basket. Matching pairs isn't a tonic for every patient, but working on a concrete task helps center Mr. Gray. Before he came here, Mr. Gray was an electrical engineer who specialized in the appliance of radon. His son once told me that just above everything man sends into space has Mr. Gray's fingerprints on it. I watch him now, his tongue tucked in the corner of his mouth, as he concentrates on trying to find a partner for a tube sock in his hand with pink and blue stripes. Then I distribute the rest of my finds, putting a measuring cup in the bin of odds and ends and setting the plastic doll in a toy crib in a far corner. I'll save the Debussy CD for when darkness falls. That's when sundowning begins. I stand in the doorway for a moment, absorbing the scene before me with fresh eyes. The residents in this room are among our easiest. None are shouting explicitives, I know the word, y'all. Expletives or trying to grope or hit me. It's difficult to predict how the disease will manifest in an individual. There's no way to say which camp my mother will fall into. My stomach heaves and I run for the nearest bathroom, barely making it to a stall and dropping to my knees before I throw up the banana bread. I rise to my feet, legs shaking, and walk to the sink. Is she pregnant? I rinse my mouth with water and wash my hands, wondering how I'm going to make it through the rest of my shift now that every resident I encounter wears the face of my mother. When mom needs full-time care, I won't be able to afford a place nearly as nice as Sunrise. It costs more than $100,000 a year. I've heard stories about what can happen in some of the bare bone facilities. Sometimes patients are hit, medicated into oblivion, or left to rot in their beds. How can I regulate her to that when my mother had devoted her entire life to me? Until I began dating Ethan. My mom and I had never spent even a single night apart. She couldn't afford to send me to any overnight school trips or let me go to the Jersey Shore after graduation like a lot of the kids from my high school class. But I understood. It's easy to keep perspective when new clothes for us always meant a trip to the thrift store, and a bad stretch of tips meant our only food was what she could carry home from the diner. Until I started working full time, we never had enough money for a landline telephone, let alone cell phones. All that time together produced an uncommon bond between us. My first word was mama. She knows my every incantation, from the toddler who loved Barney and would eat anything as long as it was covered in ketchup to the moody ninth grader who wore thick black eyeliner and blasted punk rock music. We're the only emergency contacts for each other on the forms we fill out. I can't lose her, but I'm no match for the disease that has already claimed my grandmother. I'm an ant in the path of an 18-wheeler. I'm spiraling. Dizziness engulfs me, and the shaking in my legs radiates through my entire body. I close my eyes and grab the cold, hard edge of the sink, fighting to pull my mind away from the abyss. I can't save my mother, so I have to find a way to keep her at home, where she'll be more comfortable. I'll eventually need someone to watch over her while I work, but the only people who volunteer for tasks like that are family, and we don't have one. A glimmer of an idea dangled before me. Dun, 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 dun. It holds the faintest promise of hope. Nothing that will fix or cure the situation, but something that could buy a little time. My mother would try to stop me if she knew about it, so I'm not going to tell her. Is she going to look for her family? She's been keeping secrets from me. About her mom dying from early onset Alzheimer's and the fact that her symptoms started 4 months ago. So I feel entitled to keep one from her. I'm going to find out everything I can about my dad and brother and friends. Ooh, her mother ain't gonna like that. And even her ex-boyfriend, the guy I think of as my sperm donor. I've asked my mom for details about her past before, but she has always gotten sad or angry or refused to talk about it. But now everything has changed. She grown now. Her mother can't. They all expunged my mother from their lives. But that was almost 25 years ago. People change. Perhaps her father has softened, especially in the wake of his wife's death. It's a long shot, but maybe he'll want to apologize and reconcile. Perhaps he has the money to pay for someone to take care of my mom while I work. Maybe he'll even welcome the chance to do it himself. The odds aren't good, but this is all I've got. That is the end of chapter 7. Okay, so I see what this chapter did. So this chapter gave us some information about the disease, right? So as the story go, we're gonna have to keep seeing if the mama gonna have these symptoms, right? So I get why this chapter was important, and I knew she was gonna be, asking some questions, but I didn't think she was gonna be going behind her mother's back. Ooh, her mother is not gonna like this, and furthermore, her expectations of her sperm donor, which is her daddy, her mom's brother and father, I don't know about that. If we're going to stick with the story that the mother going to have Alzheimer's, she need to not have her hopes too high that they're going to be there to help her. She need to find out why her mother ain't telling her stuff about the past. Okay, so there was one word that I didn't know how to pronounce it. I don't know the definition of it. So stay tuned for the definition video. Please hold. Okay, welcome to the definition portion. The word that I could not pronounce is spelled I-N, F like Frank, I-N-I, T like Tom, E, S like Sam, I-M-A-L-L-Y. Okay, so this is how it is pronounced.
Infinitesimal.
Whoa. Infinitesimally.
Infinitesimal.
Okay, so it is an adjective and it's just extremely small. Let me see that one more time.
Infinitesimal.
Infinitesimally. Okay, its tentacles continue to stretch, wreaking havoc with the intricate
infinitesimal.
Delicate areas governing emotion and movement and the ability to do simple tasks like use a fork. Why couldn't they just use small? The word small. But anyway, so that's the word right there. And that is the end of chapter 7. I shall see you in chapter 8. Bye.